Hey guys, hope everything is going well. I wanted to do a video about China, and the reason is that no one's really talking about China. You see some articles, but the main topics have been tax cuts. They have been about Donald Trump's tweets. They have been about Bitcoin, and I want to change topics for now because this is very important in my opinion, looking at the Chinese yield curve and also looking at the US yield curve, but that US yield curve story has been overplayed by the media. And in fact, I believe they should be focused on China's yield curve instead. And this over here is a Wall Street Journal paid advertisement, I believe by the CME. It talks about China's flattening yield curve. Will it do anything to commodities? Now, I'm looking at this chart over here, and whenever you tend to have upward sloping yield curves, that's usually positive for the stock market. Or if you start to see it go in that direction, markets usually benefit off of that. And the rationale is you have these big banksters, right? They take this money from the short term and they lend it into long-term illiquid securities. It's all fine and dandy when the economy is growing, but when the economy is contracting, it could cause some stress within the short-term funding market. And we saw all of this happen in 2007, 2008. But let's look at one situation here. We started to see the 10 and 3-year spread, they started to flatten, and you started to see stress in the Chinese stock market. We could take a look at the ETF, the iShares MSCI China ETF, and you could see the stock market started to plunge. And ironically, when it bottomed, the stock market bottomed as well. So it's just showing that the short-term and long-term funding, not always, but it does help when you have an upward sloping yield curve. And if you want to look at this slowdown in 2012, 2013, right? You could see over here that stock market started to fall as the spread started to narrow. And you started to see the bottom, in June, July of 2013. And that's when you start to see the inversion of the yield curve, but then it went back up positive yield curve. Now, what's quite interesting is this year, you saw the market just go up in a straight line in China. But over here, you start to see an inversion of the long and the short end of the curve. And as of right now, the 10 and the 3-year spread are trading roughly around, I don't know, there's like a 10 basis point spread. So it's very flat. A lot of people talk about the United States yield curve and how that is warning of a recession, but let's look at a few yield curves in America. If you want to look at, let me get rid of this ad here. If you want to look at the 3-month and the 10-year, some Forex books talks about looking at the 10 and the 3-month because the 3-month is very short. And that's 1.15 basis points. So I'm not too worried about the yield curve in America, despite what we're seeing in the headlines. But if you look at, for instance, the 2-year, because some people look at the 2-year spreads. I used to look at the 2 and the 10s before, but let's take a look at this. This is at stockcharts.com, by the way. It's only, 57 basis points. So over here, this is not as bad as in China, for instance. So I'm not too worried about a recession as of this moment in the United States. The way that the U.S. government determines a recession, how Wall Street looks at a recession. I mean, I've told you before, I don't buy the inflation numbers, but it doesn't matter what I think. It matters what these guys think because they're the ones in charge. So that's to put that aside for American yield curve. I'm not worried about it right now. We could be worried about it in the next year and a half, right near when maybe Elizabeth Warren, maybe Kamala Harris goes against Donald Trump. I think the globalists will try to raise interest rates to engineer a recession. Call me a conspiracy theorist. But this is how it usually goes right around election time. Didn't happen last election time. But they usually raise rates. And then boom, shakalaka. Curve becomes inverted. And guess what? You see a change in regime. So when it comes to inversion of yield curve, not too worried about United States, but China, you should keep a close eye on it. If you start to see even more flattening or even turn to inverted sloping yield curve, uh, that could have a detrimental effect on commodities, on oil, on gold, silver, copper, iron ore, etc. So you should be aware of it. I know a lot of you trade gold or invest in gold, and that's something to keep aware of. I do look at the commitment of traders that the CFTC releases as well, but this is just to look at it from a longer time horizon, not from a trading perspective, just to make sure that you get the big picture out of it. But anyways, guys, let me know what you think, and hope you have a nice holiday, and I'll talk to you later.